Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of sports reports as ordered. Your unorthodox statistician, 2-5, and if you look across from my name, you can see how I feel right now. You know what I'm saying? F. Aaron Rodgers. That's the anthem for 2024. And I got with me the even kill, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. He said y'all can't even be friends if you ain't got no Bon Jovi in your ride.
Can't do it though.
Don't bring feelings to a fact fight. He is Mr. Logic. Yes, sir. We're going to talk about Joel Embiid. We're going to talk some NFL. We're going to talk some college football. And, of course, we're going to talk some baseball. Yes, we do that, too. Let's get it started. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Logical, as I was perusing, just sitting around absorbing some sports news, something caught my attention. The Philadelphia 76ers have been fined $100,000 because when Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey made statements, it contradicted what has been said about Joel Embiid's injury. What we doing?
Same thing Arthur Smith did last year with Bijan when he was sick. Thinking you giving your team a competitive advantage. You don't want to give the other team a competitive edge. Joel Embiid thinks that he can just sit back and rest until the playoffs. He's already said, I'm not going to play back-to-backs for the rest of my career. And I've said this every single time someone brought up load management. Just don't practice hard. He knows the plays. Just have him come in to the facility for treatment. The massage table, the little leg things that they do, hyperbaric chamber, have them take naps, bring in a yoga professional. Just have them just stretch and just stay loose, be in the building. Don't run up and down the court for practice. No unnecessary wear and tear in your knees. Play the 2 games. Just don't practice. As long as you can keep him in shape via just whatever calisthenics that's not too bad on his knees, treadmill, elliptical.
How long? Let me ask you this real quick. How long do you think it takes for NBA players to adjust to new players on their team? Because they had a lot of changeover.
Well, a lot of those guys still have a very basic role of standing around and watch the offensive players do their thing, and you catch and shoot or you rebound. It's not as if they're working in a new point guard,
Paul George,
like a Chris Paul that runs the offense. Paul George is to run the offense.
He might,
Paul George, but he's going to get the ball and he's going to be able to I'm going to pick my spots. I'm going to pick my times. I'm going to get 4 to 6 shots this quarter, maybe 10, 12 shots and a half if I so desire because I'm Paul George. We talked about Jeff Teague talked about this a lot on this podcast. Was like you can average 30 something in high school, 20 or so in college, and get to the NBA and be pick and pop guy, rebound guy, defensive guy, just a glue guy. Like that could be your whole role. And the only time you get to get up 12 to 15 shots is if you're hot on those pick and pops or the starter not there. So guys have their role. I just feel like a lot of these players have kind of tasted that sauce that makes them think that they're destined for more greatness than they are. I'm like, it's not. Joel Embiid, your problem isn't playing back-to-backs. It's the fact that you no matter how many games you play, you get injured. So you can play 41 games and you're probably still going to get injured because you missed a bunch of games last year.
Only played 39 games.
You're just injury prone.
And see, like for me, I got a couple of thoughts on this, but I'll start with the basic one. So Nick Nurse is the head coach of the 76ers, of course. So he has a little bit of experience with this because, he was the championship coach of the Toronto Raptors with the one and only Kawhi Leonard, whose knees might be worse than Todd Gurley's. But, as we look at this, the thought that I have is the fans, of course. We talk about this a lot, people getting charged all this money. So here's problem number one that the NBA has. You got to market all your teams or as many teams as possible because guess what? Philadelphia has 27 national games this year. Why they on TV? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to punish the team, forget the fines. Start chopping away some of those national TV games. Maybe the NBA could look into flex scheduling, if you will.
They're going to absolutely have to because if Tyrese Maxey needs a break and Paul George isn't playing and Embiid's not playing and they're playing against Milwaukee and Dame is not playing, that game shouldn't be on TV.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So then, we talked about this a lot. We argued about this as far as you can't tell if a guy is injured or whatever the case may be. I come in here and tell you my hamstring hurt. You can't tell me it don't. Or there's a certain extent of how far the information goes. So as we look at this, Joel Embiid played 39 games last season. He came into the playoffs last year, played on one leg and a half a face, up against the Knicks, went 6 games.
Yeah, he had a lot going on.
Yeah, then he went to the Olympics. So he was healthy for the Olympics. Something happened in between the Olympics and now, I guess. But I think that's where the NBA got frustrated was this is opening night. This is the new season. Everybody's excited. Fans are paying money to come see their favorite players, the best players. And here you are sitting out games. And so Nick Nurse is saying these things like, oh, hey, he's looking good. He's looking good. Like, well, some things that I saw said he might not play until December. So as far as finding them $100,000, I don't think that's the answer either, because the same guy that owns the 76ers owns the Commanders. So therefore, that money means nothing. If you want to start getting these teams to play ball, so to speak, you might have to take a draft pick or threaten it. Like you might. No, I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm just saying if you want to get their attention and get this to stop, that's what you got to do. But the problem is that the players put themselves in this position to begin with. Well, the teams probably had a lot more to do with it.
The teams had a lot to do with it because we saw the Golden State Warriors from 2009 when Steph got drafted, 2010. I think Clay came some years after that. They weren't getting national games until they got live.
All right.
And now they end up with a new arena. So I think owners will ride with the whole, like, you know what? If I got to do this and still get a championship out of it, that works. But
what up, Mike? Hey, check this out, though. Quick question.
Podcast, check it out.
Let's role play real quick. Pause.
You
know what I'm saying? You the owner and I'm Steph Curry. Come tell me you want me to sit tonight.
I need you to sit.
No. That's the end of the conversation right there. One love, Mike. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but that's
what
the end
Mike
of the
said about the low management with Pop is that Tim Duncan low management,
but he was old
because he wasn't a superstar. Case in point, I think I'm gonna invoke the name of the great one, LeBron. If the Lakers wanted to game manage or low manage LeBron, that would make sense to the Lakers and him because he can come in and dominate the game and score points and make things happen and then take a break with but the problem is that LeBron Laker tickets, not just Los Angeles, the LeBron Laker ticket prices are markedly higher anywhere you go, especially if he comes to the East Coast, because I don't think they play one game.
They play once a year against the East home and away.
So you get one game against Washington, one game against Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, like, when we were having this conversation,
it's not like it's close. Like here, I live in Jersey, so I can maybe go to the Brooklyn game. I can go to the Knicks game. I can go to the Philly game, and maybe if I'm feeling froggy, I can try to catch the Washington game. But that's because I live here. But if you live in North Carolina, maybe you go to the Hawks game. Maybe you try to hit the Hornets game if he plays it.
Yeah.
Maybe. So it's like that's the only difference. See, with Joel Embiid, I think people want to see him, but I don't think people want to see him as much as they want to see a guy like Steph, a perimeter guy. I think people like watching Embiid. I think basketball people really like Embiid. But as far as like the fan experience, I think if a young fan came to the arena, I think what you can get with Tyrese Maxey is what they like to see. It's what current fans like to see. That's the only thing. And if Embiid's actually hurt, just be like, yo, he's hurt. I'm pretty sure something on him is healing from some kind of procedure that happened in the last few months. But even if they have to embellish it, like real quick before we get to Anthony Richardson, Rich Eisen says something like, I want my players to be honest when they come in the podium, but sometimes lie to me.
Sometimes say no comment. Sometimes say, I talked to my coach about that. My coach knows what it is. That's the end of it. Like,
We're
know what I mean?
Keeping the information in house.
But I think that's the problem too, is with the Sixers, is that they haven't really gone out, not that they have to, but they haven't really gone out of their way to express this is what's wrong with Joel Embiid. Like, we've heard like knee soreness. Like,
because
he don't have that forever.
Because you can't get on TV and say he don't feel like playing yet.
No, I know, but you can at least make up. You can at least make up something.
That's the thing. It's probably has.
Yeah, he the one that said he wasn't doing back-to-backs. That wasn't the team that said that. That was him.
Yeah. So he's probably literally saying, "Listen, up until December, we'll be fine. We'll win these games as long as we're 45 and 37 at the end of the year. We can make a playoff run. I don't care if we're the 5th seed, as long as we're higher than 6." And I think it's a lot of teams look at like, as long as we're higher than 6 and we're not in the play-in and we're playing for our playoff lives, whoever's 3, like if you figure right now, Orlando ends up 3 and Philly ends up 6, and Embiid has played 38 games this year. Now he's played 38 games between. We'll say he played 50 games. Say he took 32 games off between now and whenever he starts, and then they sprinkle in some games off before the playoffs start. So he gets 50 good games under his belt. They get the 6th seed, and they're playing Orlando. It could be competitive, but in their mind, they're thinking the investment we made in Embiid's body by allowing it to just basically simmer, now it's time for him to come out and cook.
But I also think that's dangerous. I think that's dangerous with somebody his size.
But in the same sense, it's like they're probably thinking like if we play him, consecutively for the first 35 games, do we risk getting him injured to the point where when he comes back at game 60, now we got to work him back into the fold up until game 80.
Well, the NBA, part of the NBA's policy though is that if a player has injury history, and I know this sounds real Air Force like, there is an approval process. So like for example, a couple years ago, street clothes, Anthony Davis, right? The process is over. A couple years ago, Anthony Davis kept getting hurt, street clothes, all that stuff. The Lakers put in place like, hey, he's not going to play back-to-backs this year. That was before this participation rule came to be. But in a situation like that, if it were to present itself now, the NBA can approve a certain schedule for players. And I think that's the thing that the NBA is looking at is this is a business. It's opening night. It's the start of the season.
We're competing with football.
World Series is going on right now.
We're competing with college football.
You got Louisiana and Texas State on a Tuesday night. Sun Belt football stand up.
Hockey's firing up. Like you have a lot going on. So you have a lot of eyes on sports. And it's one of your major markets. If I had to guess, Philadelphia is probably 8 nationally, somewhere around there, as far as like they're 4.
I think it's 5 actually. Houston passed them, so they're 5.
New York,
LA, Chicago, Houston,
Philly.
And then depending on what you look at, it could be Phoenix too. So
Phoenix, Boston,
yeah,
so you have these markets, especially you have like these nostalgia based teams. I just believe he's really telling them like how Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the soccer player, just kind of had like this air like, yo, when Zlatan plays, Zlatan wins.
yeah.
He probably just has that like, yo, when I show up, we'll win. In the meantime, I'm chilling. But they don't know how to articulate that in the injury report.
And see, and that's the problem. Not only was it opening night, you were playing against Milwaukee too. You know what I mean?
I don't think any of that
they
matters.
played Indiana. No, I'm just saying from a business standpoint, like if you're sitting in the NBA front office or someone who has some skin in the game, because we don't have skin in the game.
That's
But
the
you
thing.
know,
When you're in Philly, you're good because it's Philly. Philly fans showing up. Philly, they might cuss you out on the way out the stadium. They might cuss the team out. They might cuss the coach out.
They're gonna treat Santa bad.
They definitely gonna cuss the ref out. But Philly fans, they showing up. Like they are going to be there in full force. Like the arena, Wells Fargo Arena will be packed. The Lincoln Financial will be packed no matter how we feel about Sirianni. Philly fans are fanatics. They're literally the mascot of the Phillies is a fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming to the game. If he was in Milwaukee, if he was in Atlanta, if he was in Orlando and he was a star, if he was in Houston, maybe even Phoenix without a Kevin Durant, then it'd be a problem. But the fact that he's in Philly, the fans are going to show up. So the NBA is looking at it like when we play Philadelphia games, we're still filming 19 to 20,000 people in the stands with signs and noisemakers, and they're going to be cussing out. So the ambiance that the NBA is selling you on TV will be fine. And then Tyrese Maxey giving you 30 points. That is just going to be like Embiid who?
It's going to be AI all over again, 8 for 31.
Yo, but that's the thing. As long as the video that the NBA cameras are recording and feeding to the masses, as long as it looks the part, 21 being on the floor or not, it's like I said, Toronto without Kawhi Leonard, or even right now the Clippers without Kawhi, that's a problem. But it's LA. So LA might just show up, and it's a new arena. Steve Ballmer is probably capable of saying, you know what? I can cut these ticket prices by 50% and still make a profit just to keep the arena filled. But it's LA. And because it's LA, everyone's going to show out in some form of fashion. But like I said, if that was in OKC or Orlando or somewhere, God forbid, San Antonio.
Don't you wish that evil on me, Ricky Bobby?
You're not going to be able to like if Wemby was sitting, it wouldn't hold water the same way.
Right. And good point, Mike. The Clippers do got Harden as well. So, they're looking a lot like those Houston teams already, so we'll see how that blends in when Kawhi comes back. So as we move on, let's take it to the Shield. So you brought his name up, so let's go ahead and get into it. Anthony Richardson benched. Joe Flacco in. Should have been that call weeks ago, but whatever. We're here now. What are your thoughts?
I want to, like I said, I keep forgetting to give guys their credit, but it was a statement that somebody made. I think it was Greeny, maybe Nick Ray. I can't remember. But essentially what they were saying is that there's two simultaneous ideas running concurrently in regards to the Colts. You want to win because you want to win.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same sense, you drafted a guy 4th overall. You don't want to be drafting that high again. So you want that guy to be there when you win. So next year, you're not trying to redevelop him for the 3rd year in a row. So you want him to be a guy this year. That's why you don't start Flacco. That was my argument against Andy Dalton starting. Because if you don't want to keep Bryce Young after this year, you got to let him play it out. And maybe he gets better. Maybe he gives you some pieces that you can work with going forward. Or maybe he lets you know that Shador Sanders might look good wearing a number 2 jersey in Carolina, or Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers or whoever, Cam
Not
Ward,
Carson Beck.
whatever quarterback you think is going to be your next guy that you get to pick as the head coach of this team. So I believe you start the young guy. The problem is you got to put the young guy in a position of where his flaws aren't highlighted so drastically. Run the ball more, maybe more gadget plays, maybe more tight ends. Just give them bigger, easier targets. If you got to dink and dunk down the field 8-9 yards at a time, listen, an NFL drive, most of them start at the 30. I got to get, 20, 25, 30 yards, and I'm in field goal range for most NFL kickers. Can I call plays for this type of quarterback that gets us in scoring position every drive? The problem is they keep calling these deep shots because they can't hit anything underneath. You got to let them play that out. Flacco's going to come in, is going to give these guys this expectation that it's going to all work out. And then Flacco's going to have his Andy Dalton moment for a couple of weeks. And you have to go back to him. Now he's missed all of these reps that he desperately needs as the first team QB. You had to give the Flacco because you're preparing for games against Jacksonville, games against Miami, games against whomever. And now you're going to have to go back to him because Flacco's not your answer. Flacco is our age. Matt Ryan's retired. They got drafted the same year. Like this Brett
and Bryce
Favre,
Young's still
Tom
smaller
Brady
than us.
miracle.
Yeah.
And Bryce Young's 6 inches shorter than my 15-year-old son. So it's like, let's keep it a beat.
Yeah. But no, I don't think Deion is.
I am that much shorter than him. That is ridiculous.
No, I don't think Deion is leaving. I think Colorado is his job until a bigger program comes calling. Like hypothetically, I'm not trying to, but if Ohio State fires Ryan Day, Deion will leave Colorado to go there. You know what I mean? Like he'll go,
Can you imagine all them Florida dudes in Ohio State?
I know. Mike don't want to see that, Michigan fan. But I don't think Deion's coaching the NFL. I think, you were telling me, Mr. Logical, you were telling me Deion said something along the lines of like, these dudes make more money than me. They ain't trying to listen to me or, something.
But that was pre-NIL too.
Right. No, I'm talking about in the NFL though. Like, so.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but he made that statement before the college players getting paid too.
Yeah.
So he might have a different.
But none of those. But none of the college players are going to get paid more than him, though.
At Ohio State.
No, because I mean, you got people like Kirby Smart, and these guys making over $10 million a year. There ain't no player getting that.
Yeah, but if you got an 18-year-old making $2 million, that's the equivalent of a 26-year-old making $14 million in the NFL. Like with his, I ain't listening to you. But I don't think
right now Deion's getting 5.7 from Colorado. I don't think Colorado's signing anybody that's going to make 5.7.
Yeah, so he's good there.
As long
as he can get another quarterback in, that's not necessarily Shador, but like he's gonna get playmakers because he recruits JUCO well. He takes the transfer portal serious, and I think he can recruit the South well. So I think he'll be able to get the skill position guys. It's a matter of like, can you get, if you have to transition to your traditional pocket passing quarterback that doesn't run, can you recruit the line that he can stand behind and get the ball to these playmakers? Right.
But back to Anthony Richardson. I agree on most of that, what you had said. And this is the thing, right? You drafted him last year. He only played 3 games last year, got knocked out of those. So he is a rookie again, for all intents and purposes. So as you look at this, for me, not affiliated with the Colts, this is your season to figure out what he is / just get him some reps. He needs as many reps as possible. I mean, hell, in Houston the other day, he went 10 for 32 and had 175 yards.
You shouldn't call more than 24 passes with him.
And so I do believe, as Mr. Logical said a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about Tua, I think that the Colts reacted to pressure, because Anthony Richardson had the moment of moments the other day where, he told the reporters that he was tired. That's better than telling somebody, let's talk about these nuts, right? But as he was saying that,
Or I lived in the darkness. I'm ready for this. Like he's Bane.
yeah, like, but
I'm
when
gonna go to Florham Park and slap shit.
So everybody is basically like,
allegedly.
So everybody is basically like, yo, I've never heard a football player say he was tired. Imagine an offensive lineman said he was tired, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff.
Come get me out of the game.
The play before he took himself out the game, he had a 300-pound dude over his back and he was running across the field. Okay, I get that he's tired. Maybe just don't say that, Anthony. But I don't think that the coach should be benching him. Unless that their thought process is, we can make the playoffs with Joe Flacco. And if that's your thought process, then Anthony Richardson shouldn't be on your roster next year. And I'm not being serious when I say that.
They owe him money for so long.
No, I get that, but I'm just making the point of, you got to play the young dude. If your answer is, I want to make the playoffs this year right now, and I need Joe Flacco to do that, then Anthony Richardson is not your answer. That's all I'm saying. But no, Flacco started last year in Houston, and he had 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and everybody said, "Oh my God, like it's the Moonwalker. He's back in the flesh." And
comeback play of the year.
Yeah, so he came back this year. He came back this year, played a few games because Anthony Richardson, guess what? Got hurt. So, and he played well. So if you was just if there was a possibility that Anthony Richardson could play bad enough or piss you off bad enough that you would be willing to bench him to put Joe Flacco in, then you should have never benched Joe Flacco in the first place.
Once again,
they're not trading Richardson. It's way too early for that.
There's no trade value for him.
Way too early. He if you could do interleague trades, Anthony Richardson would have value. Like if you could call the Chicago Bulls and be like, I'll give you Anthony Richardson for something because he could jump out the stadium, he has trade value. Around the NFL, nobody wants him.
It's not about anybody wanting him. It's just that nobody needs him. Like no one needs a quarterback. Like, why would I take on a guy that you're still building? You have to stick to your convictions. You drafted him, even if you think it's a mistake. Unless you're going to fully cut your losses and pay him out and move him, which I don't think they're going to do, because I don't think their GM makes those kind of bold moves. Especially because what's going to end up happening, the same thing that happened with the Raiders with the interim coach. Yo, Mike, that's probably dead on. It's just they got enamored with size. They got enamored with this idea that they can get a bigger, stronger, faster version of insert whoever your favorite quarterback is. Oh, Trey Lance is a bigger, faster version of Mahomes, or but just get the quarterback that fits your system that you've seen on film can, orchestrate your offense to get your team points.
Well, you got to remember who their head coach is too. This is the guy that helped, get Jalen Hurts to a Super Bowl.
But Jalen Hurts also was a very successful college football passing quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't throw it a ton. He wasn't out there like Graham Harrell throwing the ball all over the place 60 times a game. But he was highly effective throwing the ball. He had a lot of years and some really good systems. Anthony Richardson was in Florida, very short time, and they've been trying to fire every coach that's ever been to Florida in the last 10 years since Spurrier, or ever since Spurrier left. So that's a different piece. And the same thing is like they had better weapons for Jalen Hurts, and he worked the tight end. Zach Ertz was an all-pro, playing like an all-pro with Jalen Hurts. And then Jalen Hurts sat behind Carson Wentz for a little bit.
And Goddard plays well whenever he's on the field.
So that's the thing. I think
that's the thing that the Colts don't have. They don't have a tight end.
The Colts are in a position where sometimes you got to stand in front of people and say, nope. Keep your feelings to yourself. We going to do this. Long term, it's going to be better because even if it's, like, say you got this situation, Flacco plays well. What do you do with Anthony Richardson? there's no trade value for a second-year quarterback you benched for a guy that got elected or got drafted when Obama got elected.
Right.
We had a couple of presidential elections since then, so there's no
Wrong
value.
one.
Like you got a guy that was in the league that many years ago who took your second-year guy's spot.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the size, people are going to be enamored with the size, but we're going to think back to that pro day when he threw the ball into the rafters of that indoor facility that he was working in. You knew that was there. There's no reason to throw the ball that high.
Right.
I like him. I think he's a likable guy. I think he's a lot like the black Justin Herbert, where it's just like there's nothing negative you can say about it as a personality. It's just that his performance on the field, you can't call 32 passes.
Right.
If the score was like 35-31, it was a shootout, then that makes sense.
I know you know that game for me ended on some bullshit though. You know I hate that whole down by contact rule. Because the Colts recovered that fumble, ran it back for a touchdown, but Jonathan Mixon just happened to graze the dude on the back of the helmet, and that counts as down as contact. Bullshit.
Yeah,
but anyway,
hate that rule.
I hate that shit so much. But anyway, let's move on a little bit from that.
It's consistently bad. I'm good with that.
So here's a question that I have for you, you know what I'm saying, and for everybody in the comments. So you got the Dolphins sitting here at 2-5. Tua came back. They just lost a heartbreaker to the Cardinals. You got the Bengals at 3-5, who just got mollywopped, by the Eagles, no T. Higgins and all that. If you had they're 35.
Okay.
If you had to take your money, your hard-earned cold bucks, and go to Vegas right now, which one of those two teams would you pick to have a turnaround and make the playoffs?
You gave me this early, and I thought about it, and I'm trying to think about the AFC playoff picture.
Well, see, the good news is, you know what I mean, is that Miami has a chance this weekend. I think they're going to lose, but they have a chance because they play Buffalo this weekend, division game. So if they,
okay, so they got to beat Buffalo. Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I'm gonna say.
I know, I just don't like it.
I'm gonna say the Bengals.
Okay.
Because I think they can still finish. Nah, I can't even say them.
I think I'm going with the Dolphins, just off of the.
I'm gonna say the Dolphins because I think they can. I think they can kind of claw their way to second in their division.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking because with the Jets falling off the way that they are, the Patriots are up in the air, obviously, and not trying to win for real unless they're playing the Jets. Cincinnati still has Baltimore again at Baltimore. They still play the Steelers twice, and so I mean, I don't know.
And that's the thing. I think best case scenario, they could be third or fourth in their division simply because I don't know how good James is going to play. I don't know. But I think.
Hey, you heard what James said. You only get one shot.
You only get one shot. You know what I'm saying? Opportunity comes once in a lifetime. And I get that. I just feel as if the Bengals are going to be in such a battle in their own division that they're gonna lose. They're going to lose a couple more divisions.
Well, I think the
division is so tough.
I think the Bengals hurt themselves.
I think Miami gets into a groove. Tua gets back in rhythm. I think optimism increases. I think every good pass for Tua in the next game over the next few weeks, if Tyreek gets open over the top, you get your speed guys out there. I think they can run off. So you said they're sitting at what, 3-6 right now?
The Dolphins are 2-5 because they had their bye week already. So here we go. Let's do this real quick.
I can see the Dolphins getting a 4-5 in the next couple of weeks.
So let's look at their schedule real quick.
Okay.
So at Buffalo,
I think that's winnable if they play to their strengths.
At the Rams on Monday Night Football.
I think that's tangible as well.
Las Vegas and New England both at home.
So stop right there. I think they could potentially run off 4 in a row if they can get the groove, the speed groove, getting the ball to Achane, getting it to Mostert, getting it to Tyreek Hill. I think that's enough because I think their defense playing solid enough. The
All right.
Bengals, excuse me, the Bengals have two disgruntled skill position players. Excuse me, two disgruntled skill position players and a quarterback that's been kind of leveraged as this. People have him top 4, 5 in the league at quarterback, but each week when they don't deliver, the conversation in there is going to be like, how you a top 5 quarterback and you can't win these games. I just think that the external pressure of contracts and titles and these preseason picks, I think they weigh more on Cincinnati. And I think Miami is playing with house money because if they don't do well, it's going to be because Tua got concussed and it threw off their season.
All right. So after that New England game, that's week 12. They go to Lambeau on Thanksgiving. Jets at home, at Houston, home against the 49ers, at Cleveland, and then they close on the road with the Jets.
So you said right now they're 2-5. 2-5. I can see them getting the 5-5, and then it's a toss up week to week after that.
All right, then real quick, let's go through Cincinnati real quick. So Cincinnati got the Raiders this week at home.
That should be a win, but that's the problem. Cincinnati has games like that this year where it should have been wins and they lost them.
Right, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Yep. Then they go to Baltimore next Thursday at the Chargers. Then they get their bye week. Pittsburgh at Dallas, at Tennessee, Cleveland, Denver, at Pittsburgh. So the reason that I wanted to bring up these teams in particular is as I was looking around the AFC, obviously Kansas City's still undefeated. So right now you have to say the other teams in their division are wild cards. So you look at Denver, are we believing in Denver? Do we think that Denver's going to be here till the end?
I think Denver can keep clawing their way to victories because they scrapped out the victories that people thought they weren't going to get. The Jets game, I'm figuring people probably didn't think they were going to beat New Orleans that bad after the way New Orleans started the season. They just beat Carolina. I believe they still have a game against Atlanta, maybe one against Tampa Bay if they haven't already played Tampa Bay.
They did. Tampa was their first win. That was the big upset.
So now they still got a game against Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So they have winnable games, and they could just kind of keep scratching.
And then the same thing with the Chargers. You know what I mean? As far as the Chargers got a big one this weekend. I mean, not for real, but they're playing the Browns. And I think that's a toss-up game. That could go either way. But just based off of how the Chargers play, which is what I was going to say about Cincinnati. They're playing the Raiders this weekend. I'm not saying the Raiders are going to win, but just the way that Cincinnati plays, the lack of running game, the lack of defense, every game is going to be a battle.
They can lose that game 27-24, and it wouldn't surprise us.
Right, and that's the problem within itself is that, Miami, like Mike said, has the number one pass defense in the NFL. So what everybody's trying to do, you're good against, and you have your weapons. So, we'll see, though. We'll see. But, but as, also looking around the NFL.
That was a good question.
But, and I
don't know why you didn't bring up the Jets as a potential.
Hold on, I'm gonna get to the Jets in a second. But what I was going to say, asshole. But fuck Aaron Rodgers.
We got another New York Aaron. We got Aaron Judge up the bat right now, bottom of the 7th.
Yankees still winning.
Yankees up 6-4.
All right, because I'm watching this Louisiana Texas State game.
Yeah,
but what I was going to say was Cincinnati. I think they really hurt their playoff chances with that loss to Philly the other day. I think they needed that game because they're already in a position where you're at a slim margin for error, because, Pittsburgh 6-2, Baltimore, they do have the 3 losses, but Baltimore's already beat you. You're only a game up on Cleveland right now.
That's the thing with Cincinnati is that if they would have played more competitive, I think they could rest on something going forward. They just got manhandled.
Yeah.
Against Philly did whatever they wanted. And we saw the clip last week of Saquon saying run it again, talking to the Giants rookie safety. they were running the hell out of Jalen Hurts, and it's like you knew it was coming. They were like, nothing you could do about
Yeah,
it.
he a damn snake stealing all the touchdowns from us fantasy owners. But
And flat out to center, Aaron Judge is still out here acting like
so I
a
wasn't going to
minor
ask
league
you
baseball
this.
player.
I wasn't going to ask you this, but now that we're talking about it, and I just happened to look down at my paper real quick.
All right.
Is Dallas making the playoffs?
No. I'm getting one team. I'm getting two teams out of NFC East.
Okay.
Washington, Philly.
Okay.
Because I think I like Dallas. Like I've always liked. I like Dak. I just think that they put themselves in such a bad position by not addressing glaring holes that they had to end the last season. Injuries happen. You know, you got Marcus Lawrence was out, Michael Parsons is out. They just there's nothing that Dallas can lean on that going into a game, crunch time, we need a play anywhere on the field other than a broken play and CeeDee Lamb gets open. If you think about Philly can run the ball and 3rd and 4th and 1, they can do the tush push. They know that is a highly effective means for them. They control the line of scrimmage, they can run the ball. Kansas City can rely on their defense, so they can be at the 3-yard line and be 4th and goal from the 3. So you know what? We're going to kick this field goal and go up 24-20, 2.5 minutes left, and turn our defense over and let the defense close the game out because they can rely on that.
Yeah.
I think even Atlanta seemed to be really good to rely on Kirk Cousins' passing game and the safeties making plays in the pass game. So like they're, even Denver is like, you know what? Bo Nix is athletic enough. He's making moves. Him and Sean Payton, the fiery, back and forth. You can rely on that. I don't think Dallas has much that when they go into a game and it's the first quarter and say they're down 10-0 after the first quarter. Couple possessions. The other team got a touchdown, get the ball back, got a field goal. It's 10-0. Dallas has the ball going into the second quarter. I don't think there's anything they can say, like, you know what? We can do these things to get a touchdown and cut this to 10-7 before they get the ball back.
All right, and then for the divisions, as far as divisions go, who gonna win the NFC West? Everybody's
Arizona.
4-4. Everybody's 4-4 except for the Rams at 3-4.
I like Arizona. I like Arizona to do that. I don't really have a reason. I just like Arizona.
Well, Arizona was one of my surprise teams this year, but I think I still got the 49ers winning it. I don't believe in Seattle at all. I think the Rams are going to go in there and spank them around this weekend.
I think in San Francisco.
I think San Francisco obviously has a lot of injuries going on. We'll see if McCaffrey gets back after the bye week. I doubt it, but that's what some of the talk may be.
McCaffrey's not playing this year.
I don't think so either. But all right. So last question. All right. Before we move on. So this was the question I was going to ask you during our pre-meeting. But so obviously before the season started, I brought up that I thought Doug Peterson was going to be the first coach to get fired or somewhere along those lines. He's getting fired this season. So I was thinking the other day, and I don't like to do this just because this is a first-year head coach. What the fuck is going on in Tennessee?
They thought they had something with Will Levis because he looked the part. And they don't. They flat out don't. They should have known when he slipped in the draft. And I get it that every once in a while scouts don't nail it. But when a guy normally falls multiple rounds who is somehow rumored to be a top pick, when you don't have ultra dynamic passing stats in college, that's a red flag to me as a scout. I know Josh Allen didn't, and I think a lot of people are comparing Josh Allen's season in Wyoming to, hey, you can get a guy who's throwing for 57% completion percentage in college and turn him around. Yeah, Josh Allen's also threw like 57 to 58 and 59% in the NFL before he got this Stephon Diggs. So it wasn't like he just came in like, oh, I'm gonna prove all y'all wrong and start throwing the ball over the field, 67% completion. He needed a top play wide receiver, and they gave him a first round pick to make that happen. Tennessee should not even have a first year coach. That's the problem in Tennessee.
100%.
Tennessee was not in a rebuild. Tennessee had win now players on staff, and then you brought in an elementary level coaching staff to try to coach these guys when they just had Joe Clark from Lean on Me be their principal. Now you brought in, Cameron Diaz from Bad Teacher to take over, and it's like, yo, this not gonna work. We had a winning component here for sure, and they botched it. So what they're gonna have to do, play the season out however it goes, and then go into the draft and say who's our next quarterback.
And that's
What pieces do we have here to get rid of? Is really a tradable piece. Like, let's go ahead
that's why for
and
me
start over.
it's so confusing, right? Because they hired Brian Callahan. He came in from Cincinnati under Zach Taylor. So I
Had a
guess
cup of coffee with Sean McVay.
there you go. Saying Tennessee was looking for a renaissance, I guess. And right now, they're number one in the league in yards per game given up on defense. So they played one less game, but pretty much the top defense in the league overall. They just gave up 52 to Detroit. That was due to some punt returns and all that kind of stuff. But when I look at Tennessee, they don't even seem to have an identity. And that's why I wonder if there's a possibility that
comes from the coach.
They could hit no, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I wonder if they could possibly hit the reset button. And if not, then he comes into next year on that same hot seat that I thought Doug Peterson was on.
I don't think he's on a hot seat. I just think that he is going to have to be a lot, because I believe they just brought in the GM from San Francisco as well. I think it was a tandem piece where both of these guys came in and they're moving other people's furniture around this house. But they're going to call the moving trucks. They're going to get it all cleared out, and they're going to refill the house with their own furniture. And that's what you need. You need time for it to turn over. I wouldn't panic, because it's not like your division is getting away from you. You're a few good moves between now and the trade deadline, player development through the rest of this year, scouting, draft. You're in the mix for 10-7 next year in your division, and you could potentially win it. Because like you talked about the hot seat. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Dougie P's on a hot seat. So that means Jacksonville's in a different kind of rebuild, because they can't even get rid of their most expensive piece of furniture.
Well, they just
that China cabinet has to
their best offensive lineman.
That ain't nothing to do with how much money they give it.
No, I know, but so I mean,
their reset's gonna be a little difficult, because they have so much of their percentage of their cap tied in this one guy. Tennessee, you can go clean slate, everything out of the crib, and it's remodeling in every room, from the bathroom to the garage to the game room. You can put whatever you want in there with the new GM and the new coach, because you're looking like none of these pieces really fit, or these 12 pieces fit, these 5 fit over here, these 7 fit, but these 17 pieces don't fit, to include Will Levis.
So you brought up we were having a conversation about Devontae Adams, and you brought up some of the reasons why you didn't think that he would fit in Baltimore.
Correct.
I think Baltimore got a receiver today that fits.
I don't think it fits. I don't think the receivers fit.
It's just his Baltimore attitude. What's his attitude going to be?
His attitude, there hasn't been much to happen to him in his football life to improve the attitude that he had from that play last year when the fumble happened and he walked.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing's happened. Like people talked about Stephon Diggs, like I'm bringing up again.
Yeah, out for the season, by the way.
It's very sad. But when he was in Minnesota and he got traded to Buffalo, he just needed a change of scenery. And then he came in and he knew, I'm the number one guy. He had a stud at quarterback, and he made that quarterback better.
Mm-hmm.
Deontay Johnson didn't like the quarterback situation last year in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Decided to sign with Carolina. That's a decision. That's a choice you made. You decided.
I thought he got traded.
You could have I'm not going there. Whatever you had to do, like
I don't
call
think
your
he has
agent.
that type of clout.
Yo, it's not even that. It's like, yo, I'm holding out and make Carolina trade you. Like, I'm not coming here, but you went there anyway, and you're already gone. So obviously he didn't want to go, and now
Right?
he's in Baltimore. I don't know where he fits in Baltimore because is he a number one guy? Does he consider himself a number one guy? Is he a
No.
number two guy? Is Bateman a number two guy? I know Bateman let the ball hit him right in the face, even though he's always on Twitter talking about throw me the damn ball. He threw you the ball and you fell down by yourself in the middle of the field and the ball hit you in the face and you dropped it. Like I said, I like Lamar, but if you're a wide receiver and you want to just run if you don't want to be in scramble mode all the time, then like Baltimore's not for you. And I like Lamar. I think Lamar's a great playmaker. But if you're a number one guy, you're always going to be second fiddle to Lamar's playmaking. Like you catching the ball isn't going to be you catching the ball. It's going to be Lamar made a play to get you open.
Well, I think he fits as the two because you figure just Flowers is their best receiver, but just going off of the structure using height and all that kind of stuff, Bateman is probably the true number one. This season with Flowers' main role in the slot. So
That's what I'm saying. So, but Flowers probably thinks he's the number one. Bateman wants to be the number one, and so does Deontay. So now you just give Lamar a guy who does not operate well, your number one wide receiver. You just gave them another problem. Baltimore, stop it. It was a bad trade.
New England Patriots
I'm calling it now. It's that it won't work.
The New England Patriots just gave me another problem because why the hell they give Kansas City Josh Uche? Like, why do these teams answer the phone when these teams call? Like back when Bill Belichick,
don't answer his call.
Yeah, like back in the day when Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, were running the Patriots, it was like, yo, if I see a Boston area code, I'm not answering the phone. If I see a Kansas City, I'm not answering the phone. I'm just not. You know what I mean? So now their defense, which is already great, gets even better. Why? Why'd you do it? After they just got DeAndre Hopkins.
These trades don't make a lot of sense to me unless you're exclusively looking at your own books.
Well, for Uche, he's their best defensive player right now. That's not named Christian Gonzalez, and they gave him up for a 2026 sixth-round pick. So not even this next draft.
Yeah, but if New England feels like they're in rebuild mode, if you know, and I think if you have foresight,
yeah,
and hey, we are going to be in rebuild mode starting the beginning of the 2024 season. We're going to try it out. We're going to see if we can make it work. But it's like, I'm not paying a guy.
Didn't the Patriots GM come from Kansas City?
I don't think so. I think he came from the Houston GM came from the Patriots. I think the Browns GM came from Kansas City, but you might be right there too.
Yeah, it was the Browns. I don't know who I'm thinking about. I keep thinking about somebody. I don't know. All right. Anyway, so
yeah, but like I said, I wouldn't want to tie up defensive end money because we always talked about these contracts. These contracts aren't about how well a guy racks up against Aiden Hutchinson as defensive end. It's like this guy wants to get paid on how well he can. If he's our number one pass rusher on this team, he's gonna want number one pass rusher money. Is irrelevant what TJ Watt does, what Michael Parsons does. It's like me on this team. This is what I do. I want this much money, and it's like we know we're not gonna pay it. Ship him out of here, and build for the future. Would I have sent them to Tampa Bay instead? Probably.
All right. Well, of course, that ain't the only football going on. We got some college football going on, and I know conference play started weeks ago, but I am declaring this week as the week that the conference races begin.
All right, Mike's about to get in his bag, so I'm going to take over the moderator part. Keep going.
Because as I look at it, and we'll get to the game in a second, but Texas A&M is now the only undefeated team in the SEC. They beat LSU the other night. So you got LSU with one conference loss. You got Georgia with one conference loss. You got Texas with one conference loss. So, I was just playing around earlier, messing around with some stuff. And it was like, what happens if LSU, Texas, A&M, and Georgia all finish with one conference loss? Because only two teams could get to the conference championship game. So what happened?
Tiebreakers.
Hold on.
Differential.
We gonna get there. Hold on, we gonna get there. So like this is the problem though. You know what I mean? Because A&M plays Texas to close the season. So if Texas wins that game, A&M wins out. Since up until then, Georgia wins out. Of course, Texas wins out. So then you get into and LSU wins out. So the first tiebreaker is head-to-head amongst the teams, which you can't really do because they didn't all play each other. So in this scenario, Texas would have beat A&M, Georgia would have beat Texas, A&M would have beat LSU, but LSU didn't play the rest of them. So do you just eliminate LSU, I guess, from that scenario? But then the second tiebreaker is your record versus all common conference opponents. So now we got to scrub and see who all played who and how that works out. Then it's the record against the best or the highest is how it's worded, the highest common opponent. So now we just playing games. You know what I mean? So like, where does Alabama fit in?
You've had for a couple of years. It's like, does the SEC get favorable voting? So at the end of the year, when they make the argument, it's Alabama lost to a number 16
right.
Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss was.
And this was the BS I told you last year.
Time when they were 16, 16 when there was undefeated. I think that year it was a conversation. Houston was like 7. Like I remember this conversation because like the year I first got my job and I was taking my breaks outside, and Houston was undefeated. And like Cincinnati was undefeated, but Houston was 22 and Cincinnati was like 8. But Ole Miss had like 2 losses. Mississippi State had a couple losses, but they were all between like 15 and 18. And it's like, why does it seem like these? He dropped the ball. Good job. So we had a guy, so he dove into second base. He was going to be out on that double attempt, but he slid head first into the second baseman, caught the ball, went to apply the tag. The ball popped out, hit him in the head. No, did he punch it out? He had his head down, punched it out. The glove hit the bag, and the ball came out. But that was a perfect throw from right field.
All right, so then, so after all that, if that doesn't break the tie, then you have point differential. And then
against common opponents or point differential
against all conference opponents, and then then it's a random draw. But in the Big Ten, it's actually a coin toss if it goes that far. But so in the Big Ten this week, Happy Valley is the site. The Buckeyes are coming in. Penn State, James Franklin 1-9 against Ohio State, hasn't beat Ohio State since 2016. If Penn State gets that win, they might be stamping their ticket to the Big Ten title game. You got Oregon on the other side, but there's a team in Bloomington, Indiana, who's undefeated as well. They're getting their quarterback back this week. Then you look at the ACC. You got Miami and Clemson undefeated, and SMU and Pitt, so SMU and Pitt play each other this weekend. So this is the week that we're going to start to see some definition. Clemson has Louisville coming in. But let's get back to these games real quick, Mr. Logical. And I didn't want to leave out the Big 12. My bad. I don't want to leave out the Big 12. Iowa State and BYU undefeated. Kansas State, 1 loss. Colorado, 1 loss. Can you imagine if Colorado gets into that Big 12 championship game?
Well, A lot has to kind of pan out. I like
Not necessarily because they don't play BYU. They don't play Iowa State. Do you believe? You know what I'm saying? Like, so they lost to Kansas State already. Kansas State has the tiebreaker. So Kansas State plays Iowa State to close the season. BYU just off in Neverland, just playing whoever the Big 12 wants to put in front of them. So the Big 12, and we talked about this before the season, like there were 6 or 7 teams that we thought could win the Big 12.
My team I thought could win it, but the 30-year-old quarterback keeps falling apart.
Yeah, and they lost to Houston last weekend as well. But look at that BYU, right? Look at that BYU, right? They got a bye this week. They go to Utah next week. Kansas at Arizona State and Houston.
Shout out to college football rivalries. Get the Holy War. Watch that game if you get a chance. It is one of the best college football rivalries in the country, and it has been for a very long time. Right. I know people don't really rock with it because it's way out in the Wasatch, way out in the 801. I mean, way out there in the mountains. But
and that's the thing, right? Like, so when you look at it, Iowa State and BYU don't play each other this year. Neither one plays Colorado. Kansas State plays Iowa State to close the season, and they already beat Colorado. So we're in this scenario where these conferences are so big that these teams can't play each other. You know what I mean? So now you got to get into all this fuckery just to have a conference championship game, which I think needs to go away anyway. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
Championship
I don't like it. It's just a money grab.
See, that's the thing. I like it because I think it just kind of adds another layer of suspense as a fan. Like, I like to watch the extra game. The thing that's gonna kind of like.
Nah, if I'm Oregon and I gotta play Ohio State for the Big Ten title, I'm like, yo, I already beat you.
Yeah, cool. That's great.
I already beat you. Get out of here.
But if you're Oregon and you'd have lost Ohio State and then you get your chance for a rematch, you'd want to play that game. So you can't just be like, oh, because we won, we don't want to deal with this.
Well, I'm not talking about. I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, it's just a money grab. Like, you need it probably now, just because of all these teams that I'm talking about. Like, you can't just have like 4 undefeated teams and be like, we're not going to have a conference championship game. But at the same time, like, that's why you just play each other. Like the SEC, and that's the other advantage that the SEC has. We talked about this last year. The SEC is still playing 8 conference games, and everybody else is playing 9. So I don't know. But anyway, so LSU, went down to A&M this past weekend. They got the Molly Wop put on them. My guy, Nussmeier had his Anthony Richardson numbers, said 25 of 50. 25 of 50.
Yo, you should never throw 50 passes in a game.
With 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, all interceptions in the second half. So I've heard some people criticizing LSU, and I think that this criticism isn't valid, but I just wanted your opinion on it. So I've heard people say, well, hey, Texas A&M put Marcel Reed in the game. Marcel Reed has played this season. Why wasn't LSU prepared for Marcel Reed? I don't think these teams are really sitting out here spending 8 hours on backup quarterbacks.
All right, and we talked about this in the pre-meeting, and I immediately had something for you, and it relates to like my son's high school football team. They played a game last Saturday afternoon.
Yep.
It was very hot and dusty. The field was kind of substandard, but it is what it is. But the team that they played, their starting quarterback got hurt a few weeks back. I think our season's 9 games. The quarterback got hurt a few weeks back. So all the film was a different guy playing quarterback, and they were just running the ball. They didn't throw it because they didn't have another quarterback. So in the warm-ups, my son was telling me they had their backup quarterback doing all the drills, warming up, throwing the ball, doing everything. And then they brought in one of their wide receivers to take direct snaps and do like inside handoffs and occasionally throw the ball. So it did kind of throw them off a little bit because the speed was different, because on film, they were expecting a different guy to back up the guy that was injured, and then they were watching a different guy warm up. And then when the game started, they brought in this ringer who was like the wide receiver, and he was taking snaps. So it kind of threw them off. They had it figured out, and they got some sacks and some other impact plays. But like eventually, you got a speedy wide receiver, a couple of missed tackles. He knows how to operate in open field. He got a long touchdown run, and that was essentially the game. But I don't think teams are preparing for the backup guy. It's just that if you prepare for what you're going to do to the starting defense, then the quarterback is essentially irrelevant. If I know this is how I'm going to attack the other team's defense, because this is where I'm going to get my points. I'm not getting my points on defense. I'm getting 28 to 35 points on offense. So long as I'm prepared to attack the defense, then I'll figure out the quarterback as it goes along, because a good defensive scheme works against any quarterback. Getting to the quarterback, no matter who it is, works. Getting at his feet, getting hits on him, getting pressures on him, pressure up the middle, making the pocket collapse on him, no matter who you are. From Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Jordan Love, Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Tommy Frazier, no matter who the quarterback is, if your defensive pressure creates an uncomfortable pocket for them, then you'll be fine. So you have to do that. So no matter who's in there, if they bring in a running quarterback, the standard is, all right, cool, contain. Keep them in the pocket, make them make throws from the pocket. Stay in your rush lanes, maintain rush lane integrity, and you're fine. And like I said, when I talked about, my son's game, when they maintain their rush lane integrity and he had to get outside, and my son plays like outside linebacker, safety, rover, he's like kind of all over the place. When everybody maintained and held up on their edges, he was allowed to come downhill and make the play. So he had a few sacks that game, because when guys maintain, it's like, listen, it's a running quarterback. It's like a throw. Just stay here. You keep filling these gaps, push him to the sideline. When he goes for the stiff arm, go low because he's a runner. Just maintain your basic keys, and and you'll be fine.
And it should all work out. So I got some concern. I don't know if you share these concerns, but I'm concerned about Ohio State. I watched them play Nebraska the other day, and if Nebraska wanted to win the game, they would have won the game by 17 points. They outrushed Ohio State, outgained them. Ohio State was already down because I talked about in our preview about how their left tackle was out for the season. So, of course, that's going to take some time to get used to that, depending on his experience. I believe he's a true freshman.
Real quick, let's get an update. Gleyber Torres, 3-run home run, bottom of the 8th. Yankees lead 10-4 over the Dodgers.
Damn. All right. But basically at the end of the day, Ryan Day ain't built for this. He's not built for the pressure cooker that is Columbus, Ohio. He
got to stop dyeing his beard.
Well,
once he stops dyeing his beard and he stops giving a fuck about the optics and starts just coaching all the 5-star and 4-star talent that he gets simply because they have the Buckeye leaf on their helmet, he'll be fine. But he keeps buying into the pressure. He's listening to the radio. He's listening to the podcast. He's listening.
Yeah, you remember last year when they beat Notre Dame, and he's like, "Where's Lou Holtz?"
You had 10 dudes on the field, and you shouldn't even have been in that predicament where you needed that kind of play. That's the problem. I can tell by the fact that he keeps dyeing his beard. He cares too much about what's going on outside of his program, and that's what's going to be his downfall. If they slip up against Penn State, he could call it. He could scratch.
They just might. And when I look at Ohio State, I believe that teams react to their coaches, whether that's your gestures, whether it's your facial expressions, whatever it might be. Absolutely. He walks around like he just got an enema, and the game can't end quick enough for him to get to the toilet. And you see the players get hyped.
The coaches panic.
Yeah.
The players know what stress looks like. The players have lived with parents who went through stress. The players have been stressed themselves. The players have looked in the eyes of their teammates. They know what stress looks like. You have to be like, you know what? This is my job. This is the moments that we came out here for. Shout out to that white boy from Detroit. I mean, you only get one shot. You do not get a chance to blow because sometimes like that's what it boils down to. And
Yeah.
it's like there's no way that Ohio State, with the talent that they have, especially where they have it, some teams are really great skill position wise. Like a lot of the HBCUs, we talked about it, like wide receiver, corner, safety, linebacker,
Mhm.
a lot of speed positions. They're solid. Not great in the trenches. It's not a lot of big, 4 or 5 star guys in the trenches that go to HBCUs. But the skill positions, man for man, you got 4-2 guys, 4-3 guys all over HBCUs. When it comes to Ohio State, they have best trench players. They have the best offensive linemen. They probably have the best facilities in the Big Ten. I mean, with Oregon coming in with that Phil Knight money, it might be a little different, but they probably have such an advantage before the ball's even blown into play on the opening kickoff. They under Ryan Day, they don't play like it. Under Urban Meyer, they play like it. Under him, it's like so many other things are just bothersome that is like you had C.J. Stroud, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. all in the same team, and then win the national championship.
And got punked, what I'm saying? And then you got you know, most of those things you were talking about, skill positions, 4 threes, that does not apply to Navy.
Man, I'm just
I tried to tell y'all.
I wanted to be optimistic, and like I said, I maybe I was kind of encapsulated in the Heisman conversation about this whole special season, and you have these opportunities to make these marks, so forth and so on. I just I want the service academies to like get a big win. I want them to throw a monkey wrench into this 12-team playoff plan. I don't want the NCAA and the college football playoff committee to be like, you know what?
Hey,
We're gonna just put them
there's
out,
still
even
hope.
though you put them on the field. Like we talked, I mean, and I think probably one of the greatest examples of that is the Boise State Oklahoma. Adrian Peterson was on that team the year that Zimbrowski and Ian Johnson beat them with the Statue of
Yeah.
Liberty plays. Like, put them on the field and let's see what happens.
You
I
know they
just
was
feel
mad. My man scored a touchdown and then went and proposed to his girl.
right on the sideline.
You know what I'm saying? But no, but
They still together. They got kids and everything.
but of course, like I said, there's hope though, because I think that Army, like I said this the other day, I think Army's the better matchup for Notre Dame, though. You know what I'm saying? Not saying Army's gonna beat them, but I just think Army matches up a little bit better than Navy does. I think, but anyway, shout out.
Oh, Aaron Judge got a hit and an RBI.
Oh,
A
good for him. It's
limbo.
about damn time he decided to
A
show up.
limbo.
Just like Residente, about time you got here. You know what I'm saying? But oh yeah, where's Q? Oh, but anyway. So, shout out to Boulder, Colorado. You are going bowling. Beat on Cincinnati the other day. Congrats. I have to say this. Let me be serious for a moment. Congratulations, Miami. You were the better team. You owned us the other night, even though Cam Ward looked a little average. But congratulations. Yeah, I believe I was the one that said they was going 8-4. Come on now. Don't do me like that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, interrupted my apology. And I was trying to give Miami some credit, but that's enough of that. Drew Aller, questionable for this Ohio State game. Bo Fribula came in and led 2 touchdowns, against Wisconsin to get up out of Camp Randall. You want to know what it's like being a Marylander?
Let's hear it.
It's almost like being an Atlanta Falcon fan. You know what I mean? You beat USC one week, come back from 21-7, and then you go lose by 25 to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's the life of a Marylander.
Minnesota has some stars. I mailed your Washington Commanders locker room plate, And I walked to the post office. The guy was like, "Yeah, we don't do that here."
SMU does it again. Somehow they beat Duke, even though they had 6 turnovers. They blocked Duke's game-winning field goal. They won in overtime. Duke went for 2 on the first possession. And when asked about it, head coach Manny Diaz turned around and said, "You try to win the game in the first inning if you can." Except for it didn't work, and SMU won because they scored the touchdown and kicked the extra point. And, oh, by the way, Manny Diaz against Miami this weekend. I'm going to leave that on the screen for Mr. Logical for when he gets back here. Also, I've been saying this for a long time, so I'm going to just say it one more time. In the last 3 years, Akron has had 3 straight 2-win seasons. They just got their second win of the season the other day, so we got a few weeks to get a third one. Where you at, LeBron? Where's the NIL?
Listen, he out there buying books, not football helmets to show.
Akron.
He's going to be a great pro. Come on, Mike. I
told you I had to leave it up there for you. Kurt Signetti.
He's going to be a great pro. He's a great young man. I think he's established. He has a great relationship with his girlfriend. It's very positive. I think he does very smart things in his off time. I like his energy. I like his maturity.
You see what Mike said? Mike said Travis Hunter is the equivalent of Kobe Bryant guarding Bruce Bowen. I'm just saying. But anyway, Kurt Signetti, the first FBS coach to ever go 8-0 at 2 different schools in back-to-back years. Shout out to James Madison. Shame on you, UTSA. You know how much I love UTSA, Mr. Logical.
Travis going to be in Dallas, by the way, Mike, because Jerry Jones loves a star. Dion was playing both sides of the ball in Dallas. I'm pretty sure they have a lot of conversations about that. I think Dion played both sides of the ball more in Dallas than anywhere else. I don't think he played both sides of the ball in Atlanta as much as he played in Dallas. Just throwing it out there.
But I love UTSA. You know what they did this weekend? They went up 35-7 on Tulsa at halftime. Had a 42-17 lead in the third quarter, and then got outscored 29-3 and lost 46-45.
Man, it reminds me of a team I support.
Yeah. Shout out to Washington State, even though you're not making the playoff. They're ranked in the top 25. But they do have a win over Texas Tech. Texas Tech ain't winning the Big 12. Your at-large chances are bye because you can't even get the G5 spot that Boise's going to get anyway. Speaking of Boise.
Nah, he had more snaps than that, Mike. He had way more than 10. He was running reverses and all kinds of stuff. Dion's my favorite player, so I watched.
Speaking of Boise, UNLV made Ashton Genty look human the other night. Held him under 4 yards a carry. He still ended up with 132 yards, so it looks all good. But let me give a shout out to Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, who put up 278 yards against Kentucky, the high of the season. So Ashton Genty has not got that number. So the high
266,
278 yards against Kentucky. The only question is, if you run for 278 yards, how you only scored 24 points? But, Mark Stoops, I wonder if he's on the hot seat at Kentucky. He had the A&M job locked up until the A&M fans revolted as soon as they heard his name. So he had to come back on home. I wonder if it's getting a little bitter there, But Auburn, who they play this weekend?
Probably some tune-up game before they play a good game.
No, they're at home, and the one and only Diego Pavia is coming through. The same Diego Pavia that came through and led New Mexico State to a 31-10 win in Jordan-Hare last year. He's coming in with Vanderbilt, who just took Texas to the wire.
Killers.
At one point, a lot of people thought Missouri was a good team. Missouri, along with Florida State, are reasons that the top 25 is stupid. Why preseason polls are stupid.
Preseason polls, yeah.
Because you know why? Because when Missouri played real competition like A&M and Bama, outscored 75-10. How about that?
Let's keep it a bean. If you play with Missouri on NCAA 25, it's legit.
Hey, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, they got talent.
Lot of speed. Yeah.
They got talent. And then finally, the firing continues. UCF, hashtag UCFacts, fires their defensive coordinator, Ted Roof. And Rice fired their head coach as well. And guess what, Mr. Logical? Rice gets to follow that up by playing the United States Naval Academy. So pray for them. Pray for them.
Nah, I hope they put up 500 yards rushing on them.
You know, so then Mr. Logical's been giving us the updates. You know what I'm saying? Mike's still going on about Dion. Go on.
He's a cornerback. He's not supposed to have a lot of touchdowns as a wide receiver. I just said he played it a lot. And I said that he did it a lot more in Dallas than he did in Atlanta. That's all I said. I didn't say he was out there running Michael Irvin's number one receiver routes. I just said he ran a lot. They gave him the ball a lot because he was.
Hey, does Travis Hunter? Does Travis Hunter have the potential to be a better receiver than Dion was? Or let me rephrase, because he didn't play. Does he have the talent? Does he have enough talent to be a better receiver than Dion would have been?
I think what Travis Hunter has is he has the same skill set as Dion, and he has Dion as a mentor. So rightfully so, I think he has potential to be better. Not like an all-time great, but I think he has the opportunity to put his skill set on display because Dion's not going to not tell him how to be a good pro. I think Dion respects him. And if you look at how he carries himself, he looks how he carries his interviews, you see how his teammates rally around him. Even his social media interactions are very just like young, happy young man who loves to play football, loves to have a good time. You can tell people enjoy being around him. I think that's the thing. He doesn't have to be Dion. Why we got to compare everything to yesteryear?
Well, hold on. Hold that thought.
How we do this every show, Mike?
Hold that thought, man. Hold that thought, because I'm going to make one more comparison real quick. So, Mike, this is just for Mike. This is just for Mike. Do you think Travis Hunter will be as good as you call him, soy sauce? And then we'll move on from that. So, we got the World Series going on. You know, Mr. Logical's been giving us the updates, and the Yankees are winning tonight for some ungodly reason. But whatever.
11-4. The weather's pretty solid here. I think it's the weather in New York right now.
Yeah, whatever.
50 something.
When they gonna get Jay-Z out here? When they gonna get Jay-Z out here to perform?
Nah, Jay-Z not doing. Jay-Z will go to. He'll go to the. He'll rock with Robert Kraft and do Patriot stuff.
All right, so is this the World Series that's going to save baseball, or that is going to bring baseball to the forefront of the American sports?
Because next year it can be Milwaukee versus Kansas City, and nobody's going to watch just because it's baseball. We talked about how like I said, you and I always have this back-to-back conversation, this back-and-forth conversation in regards to the market size.
Yeah.
Fat Joe old, man. Like Fat Joe, damn.
Fat Joe ain't been a good rapper one day in his life. That's why I don't even understand.
Fat Joe's been a good rapper. Calm down.
Oh, actually, I take that back. Fat Joe was a good rapper once upon a time, back when Big Pun was writing the rhymes for him. So I do take that back.
Listen, that notepad still exists.
I take it back.
But yeah, so me and you going back and forth about small market versus large market. Baseball, they're probably the sport that the market size really matters, because hockey market size, but hockey has a very niche fan base. Like it's not a lot of hockey. It's not a lot of sports fans that are hockey fans, where it's like there's plenty of people who like sports who really like baseball for one reason or another. Their kid played or they played. People love football because it just,
because it's violent.
That, and then you play it at so many levels. Almost every youth level gives you all the equipment you need. So as long as you can pay the registration fees, and you can find a field that's 120 yards with the end zone and some goalposts, you can have a football league. No matter how good the grass is, as long as you get the pads and the players, you can play football. Baseball is all travel now; it's very niche. So for like the last 10 or 15 years, baseball's kind of like gone away from the community, and it's been more of a very like it's been more like soccer. Like the way soccer has
Like elitist?
always been in America. Elitist niche, like just like a different avenue, except outside of America. Like I said, with soccer, outside of America, you have Europe, you have Africa, South America. They play soccer the way we play football in America, whereas baseball is kind of transition that same piece.
Yeah.
Like the very niche is like everybody isn't involved in soccer. I mean, in baseball. So as we've kind of grown accustomed to seeing football all the time, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, it's 55 straight days of football games. There was probably 55 straight days of baseball for sure throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody cared. I mean, because it's just not. It's not the same. It's not the same like emotional fan connection that football gives you.
Right.
So that's the difference. I think people like the players, but the fact that shout out to Cameron for shouting this out, and I want to make sure I give him credit for that on his show. It is what it is.
Well, hey, like
you said no one really cares because it's like it's New York versus LA. That's driving this current popularity.
Hey, 7.6 million people watched the All-Star game this year. They say that, numbers are doubling as far as ratings within the, 39 to 44 range, whatever it was. So people are watching more. And I think that has a lot to do with the rule changes as far as like the base stealing now, the clock, So, yeah, and baseball.
Those are probably people who are already watching baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball probably hasn't done much to create new fans. I mean, if you think about the biggest stars, Bryce Harper, he's been in the league for double-digit years.
Sorry. I was watching this highlight. Luka with a 3 from damn near a half court. This is what I fucking do. Anthony Edwards with 24 points in the first quarter, and lo and behold, that was the only 3 Luka hit all game too. So there you go. But anyway, but yeah. So where baseball lost me, I'll talk about myself because I was an avid baseball fan. Just say 10 years ago, and I would even say that the Dodgers Astros World Series of 2017 is probably the best World Series I ever watched. The first World Series I ever watched was back in '88, Oakland and Cincinnati.
Was that the cheating scandal one? Or was that one afterwards?
It was the cheating scandal. Yeah, it was the one the Astros won. Okay. Yeah. So the first World Series that I ever watched, in my whole life, well, I guess it would be '89. Was the I believe it was the A's and the Dodgers. And it was just one of those things. Oh, it was the Giants. I'm sorry. Oakland swept them. That was the Bash Brothers. That was the first World Series. So I've been watching baseball for a long time. But where baseball lost me was where, luckily, the Yankees haven't been winning World Series. The last time they won was 2009. But the Yankees were a big reason why I fell out of love with baseball because they would just go snatch all the players up. With no salary cap, so baseball is designed for the big market, like you were just talking about. When you look at it, this is the World Series that they've won it for years, besides the Subway Series. So to prove that point, let's look at some ratings, right? So, so far, in this baseball season, this World Series, 14.5 million viewers across all networks in the United States, and then you got Japan watching because of Shohei, so 15.15 million viewers. But if you go back to it, let's look at this for a second. So let's go back to 1989, since that was the first World Series that I watched. There was 15 million people or 25 million people that watched that World Series overall, but an average of 16.4 million viewers. The series before that was 23.9. So if you fast forward through time, you start to see it around 2005, dips to 11.1, going down, 7.6 in 2012. So, you got the Yankees and the Dodgers right now. It was only 4.9 last year.
But you got to factor in so many people don't watch the games on TV to where Nielsen rating can,
Definitely,
calculate
but
how many
19
people
million
watch it.
less? That's a lot. That's a lot of people streaming.
It's a lot of people streaming. Like how many people you go to the house, they have Direct TV or Comcast or anything? I think my pops has it.
Still, most people that
Matter
I
of fact, I
know.
don't think he has it. He has like one of the streaming, like the Fubo or one of those apps. Like a lot of people don't, unless those apps are reporting their numbers. Like I watched Super Bowl on like Paramount and Peacock over the last few years. So I think baseball is entertaining. I think it's still America's pastime. It's just a lot of people, a lot of adults, their children aren't playing baseball. Like you have how many kids that play sports?
3,
Three. How many of them play baseball?
0.
I have 4 kids. My daughter plays t-ball. My oldest son didn't play baseball. My middle son didn't play baseball. My youngest son played 2 years. And he's played, like when he plays sports, he plays like year round. So he goes fall football, then it's like wrestling or basketball, and then he played baseball a couple times, but then it's been more lacrosse in the spring and the summer, right back into football. Then he had wrestling a couple times. So like he's played sports year round for the last 8 years. And only a couple of those, spring summers, it was baseball. And it's just like it didn't lock him in the way other sports did. And that's someone who he talks sports all the time. He talks sports concept. He loves sports. He loves playing. He loves the coaching aspect of it. He loves sports in and of itself. But even that couldn't keep him in baseball. He has a friend that played baseball, but he plays travel. So we live in Jersey. I talked to the dad. He was like, I think the furthest they went, like he said, the last couple of years, he was like, we've done a bunch between Jersey, a couple in Pennsylvania. He's like, we went down to Tennessee. He said, then there's Cal Ripken is like the league they're in, and they play in Maryland. And I think he said they went down to Florida. But that's all driving, unless you want to fly. But a lot of times the teams caravan from Jersey down to Florida.
Right.
That's not always something that, the average group of people do. So, but you could play great football within your state. You can play great basketball within your state. But baseball seems to like kind of taking the soccer route, where it's like you got to play exclusive clubs, especially on the American side.
I think baseball is changing. I think baseball is changing as America is changing, from the standpoint of I'm not trying to do what I'm going to be accused of doing.
Just say it. We don't care.
But baseball started out as this great white sport. Right. Like we had the separation, segregation of players and all that stuff like that.
They just integrated the records this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So as time went on, and baseball desegregated, it got popular. We grew up, people like you and I watched Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey, people like that.
I played baseball growing up. I wasn't very big. I didn't play football. I didn't have the basketball skill set. But my size on the baseball field was perfect. I played catcher. I could run. I could hit. I could steal.
And right now, as we speak, Major League Baseball, the players 6% black. You know what I mean?
It was 8 a couple years ago. So
that doesn't even
African American black. So you have like the Dominican and everybody else.
So that doesn't even resonate.
American born black players.
Yeah, like how many black people do you know besides us that watch hockey? You know what I mean? So you're already,
and the thing about hockey, the hockey is the American born black hockey player or Canadian born black hockey player. Those numbers are going up probably at a higher rate than the baseball player.
Right. But the thing is that, as time goes on, Hockey is fire, but but we don't watch it in general. Like black people in general, I don't know many people that watch hockey. Like Mr. Logical is literally probably the only black person I know besides myself that watches hockey, and I still don't
That's
watch
because we
hockey.
lived in Utah for a
But
while.
but I still don't watch
That's where you
hockey
get to
every night.
indoctrination when you go to Utah.
Yeah, I still don't watch hockey every
It
night.
is
You know
it
what I mean? But
is the best. It's
it's
the
not must
best
see TV.
professional
Baseball's not
sport
must
to
see TV for
watch
me.
live. If you go at almost any level, upper level youth hockey to teenage, like 18 to 20-year-old leagues, and like the minor league hockey and professional hockey is probably the best sport to watch live.
Well, it's like I was having a conversation with Lindsay one day, and she was asking me like, because I listen to a lot of different music, a wide range of music, but I don't really listen to a lot of country music. And so she had asked me like, well, why don't you listen to country music if you're so open to music? And I was like, because when I was younger, it's different today, but when I was younger, country music ain't want me around. It didn't feel inclusive, in that way. And that's how baseball feels a little bit, where it's not inclusive anymore. It's just we'll take your money, but that's it. So, watching baseball is a chore
It
on
isn't,
TV.
but what you said, baseball isn't inclusive. It is an exclusive sport. It is pay for play, pay the it's when we talk about AAU basketball, then there's like another circuit. And then it's the Nike Adidas circuit, and then it's the selection there where you have because we saw a video, I think someone posted in our group talking about how the reason that so many of these youth programs that we see on overtime are filled with former NBA players' kids is because it costs. You need to be able to fork over 30, 40, 50 grand potentially for coaches and things of that nature. So like the NBA is starting to look a lot like
I agree, Gene.
baseball, except that the NBA is being funneled it's being funneled by former black players are putting their kids into these AAUs. So it
So
looks
so
like there's more American born black players. I won't say African American. I want to be like, American born black players
so
in
if
the
you were
league because a
doing
lot of them are children of the other black basketball players that have been
so
in the
so, so
league.
let's do something real quick. If you were power ranking, where does Major League Baseball fall in your viewing guide? Like
The hierarchy, if you go, it's NFL, NBA, NCAA football, then baseball, interchange with hockey. I think I'd probably watch more hockey games because the hockey game, it doesn't matter who's playing because it's just action. Because in a hockey game is 3 periods, 20 minutes each. Most of your players, your star players, they're on the ice for 17 to 19 minutes. They run 3 or 4 lines deep, the power play lines, the penalty kill lines. Like they have so many different, players that have to see the ice that the number on the jersey and the name on the jersey is irrelevant because the action is exactly the same. Guys skating, chasing the puck, trying to score. Like Sidney Crosby gets 19 minutes on the ice. Ovechkin's 19 minutes on the ice. They do their skate, 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 line change, skate, 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 line change. So everything that everything you want your team to be, hockey encompasses that by saying, hey, we need everybody available to play well because all of you are going to have to be on the ice for a little bit.
right, and
That's
don't
the difference. But
forget.
like I said, with baseball, the youth baseball program is travel ball.
And don't forget,
It's
Ovechkin is 49 goals away from tying Wayne Gretzky. So like for me, it probably goes college football is number one, then NBA, then NFL, Premier League soccer, MLS soccer, college basketball, NHL, baseball.
See, I don't get into college sports viewing as much as you do for the extended amount of period of the year. Like I watch it probably a lot more February through April as far as college basketball than I do October to February.
Yeah.
In baseball, like I said, I'll dabble a bit in baseball. Now we have the show. I've looked at it a little bit more, but I can see how people come off it because your kid doesn't play. Like I have a son who plays sports. Like my son doesn't play baseball, so it's football damn near year round. Even when he ran track to stay in shape for football because summer practice started June. So if you are a parent and you like sports and your kid doesn't play baseball, the likelihood of you spending your time watching baseball versus watching a sport that your kid participates in, that's the difference.
I do think baseball is funny though because the owners operate the way that fans hate the way that players act in the NBA. So, for example, like the whole, Miami Heatles thing. Everybody was upset because the players controlled that. Like the players decided this is where we want to go. We want to play together. People were upset by that. But then they're Yankees fans. And that's all the Yankees do is go out and just grab the best players.
Red Sox, Dodgers, all the teams with enough money and willing to spend do it. But some owners like the Cubs, I think they're owned by the Chicago Tribune. I mean, that's old money.
That's old money, yeah.
That's old money. They could do whatever they want.
Well, we were just on here a few months ago. You were talking about how the White Sox are, just a sad, pathetic excuse of a franchise.
How are you that bad when you can spend all the money you want? That's all encompassing, like what the owner wants to do. The Pirates, they sat a guy down so he wouldn't hit his bonus for at-bat attempts.
See, and in that way, for me,
it was like $1 million bonus, but the owner wants to turn his like $100 million profit he gets off the team every year because they don't make the playoffs.
Right.
So they don't make the playoffs. So basically, he's looked at as a cash cow from
81 home
end
games
of March, from March until September 30th, March 30th to September 30th. Like, this is my window to make $100 million. And then he goes with that. Whereas other teams want to carry the prestige and the legacy of their franchise. I believe Magic Johnson's a part owner in the Dodgers franchise. And like I say, it's just there because you have the city. We talked about like concert tickets. You could have flown to Paris from New Jersey and seen Taylor Swift for cheaper. You could have gotten 2 tickets to Paris, an Airbnb, and 2 tickets to Taylor Swift in Paris, which is cheaper than you can see her here on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Some cities just need their teams to be good so they can sleep comfortably at night when they're charging you these crazy prices.
See,
LA is going to charge you some crazy. I gotta spend money to get these players here because I'm going to beat you over the head for these prices of these tickets for these 81 home games.
And see, in baseball just doesn't feel pure to me. Like, like the game itself is pure on the field. But when I look at it, for example, let me use examples. So like in the NFL, when I look at the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks have every ability or advantage that the Pittsburgh Steelers do. It's just which front office can do better, which front office is going to hit on the draft,
manipulate the cap, and
right, all that kind of stuff. When I look at the NBA, when I look at the NBA, there are a lot of players that want to go to Miami or go to LA. They want to go to New York, so on and so forth. But
you can't have Jalen Brunson, LeBron, AD, Jimmy Butler, and Karl Anthony Towns on the Lakers.
So baseball is set up by design for the Yankees, the Dodgers, so on and so forth to do well. But the good thing about baseball is that you have these stories every so often, like the Arizona Diamondbacks that come through, get a Randy Johnson.
The Royals won a couple World Series.
Yeah, they won a World Series recently. Yeah, and that's why when you go back and look at it, it's so surprising that Oakland has the 3rd most World Series considering how awful they've been
for like last 28 years.
Like it's just amazing how that works. But that just goes to show you that, like, you might have your Arizona that comes through one year, but then they fade back, or the Marlins will win the World Series and blow it all up.
But I like the no salary cap in baseball because it gives you an opportunity if you are, like, case in point right now.
Like, if I'm a
The
Japanese dude, there's three
the,
teams I'm going to play for.
the Cleveland Browns right now are essentially handcuffed and hamstringed with Deshaun Watson's contract.
Their own dumb decision.
True indeed. But if they didn't have a salary cap and they wanted to see if they can get Trevor Lawrence away from Jacksonville and pay both of these guys until Deshaun Watson got back healthy, they could. But they're strapped. Baseball, you can try to buy your way out. But there's teams, we saw Moneyball, even though it didn't work until he went to Boston and they had actual money. But, like, people kind of forget that part. Because, like, the idea was great. Let me get 3 guys in here that get me, 60 home runs versus trying to get one guy that gets me 50 for $200 million, where I can get 3 guys that get me 60 for $120 million between the 3 of them. Well, that makes a lot of sense. But you still got to deliver.
The only thing I want from baseball is for the Dodgers to win tomorrow and put these motherfuckers and their pinstripes out of their misery.
What? There's something wrong with being a Yankees fan?
Not the Yankees.
For what?
Aaron Rodgers.
They're just a good, successful baseball organization. They have great food in their stadium. The garlic fries are impeccable. The Swiss cheeseburger was incredible. The stadium looks good. It's right downtown, right in the Bronx. I love it. You take the D train from Penn Station, boom, you're right there. It's a great environment. I take your children,
and you know what? And I'm fine with not
leave. Don't hang out.
I'm fine with not in that stadium until March.
Listen, when the game's over, get out of Dodge. Get the fuck
out. You can go watch games there in March and April, but get them off my TV now.
Yeah, I mean they earned their way. Listen, sometimes you could buy it, but the Yankees buy it. Yankees put money into this process of winning the World Series every year. And we said the last time they won it was 2000.
Exactly.
They always put the money in. So it's just a matter, you still got to get the hits. I'm not sure what the Houston playoff or Houston pay chart looks like and the percentage that they're spending. But baseball has, as far as what they do, because you think about it, their games are on all the time.
Right.
Plenty of opportunity to see. I'm a Falcons fan. They came to Philly. I wasn't going to Philly. The closest game I'm going to be able to get is Carolina.
Do you think baseball, to Mike's point, since he just brought up Barry Bonds, do you think baseball lost a lot of black fans by not letting him in the Hall of Fame?
No, I think they lost a lot of black fans when it became this pay for play. When they shifted their focus on diversity to just setting up baseball camps in the Dominican Republic and Cuba and there's other places where they got dark-skinned players who are Hispanic. Once they use that, then they're like, okay, cool. We'll use that for our diversity, and then we'll allow the travel program to fill the college program, and then we'll pluck our players from there. Because you still can get drafted out of high school, but even with that, like I said, my son's friend he plays high school baseball, but he plays travel. And I think this year, if he wasn't starting varsity QB, he probably would have still been playing travel baseball up until this month. Even here in Jersey, where like today being 60, 70 degrees was abnormal. So like years past, we would talk about it because we play like the youth football, and he still would be playing travel baseball concurrently with the football. So he would miss practices for baseball games, and a couple of the teammates were in the same boat because they played travel baseball.
So do you think that now, so let me go back for a second. So the reason I keep bringing up the markets is because I think that what makes sports is the passion, for example. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about cities like Pittsburgh, who I don't know what Pittsburgh's known for besides their weird pizza with the sauce on top. You know what I mean? Like outside of their Steelers and
I think they're big on sausage like that. That's like a thing. Like I think
yeah,
they have like
must
a
be
big
a
sausage thing.
bunch of Germans or something there. But
Yeah.
but like even like when you think about college football, you think of these little towns like Tuscaloosa. You know what I'm saying? You think of these little towns like Athens, Georgia, where like that team or whatever is the identity of that city. That's what the city exists for. That's what the city for. Whereas like when you look at baseball, so I asked, is this the series that saved the sport? Because you got the number two, the 1 and 2 teams or cities in the United States.
Markets, yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know how it resonates.
I don't think people in America like New York or LA. I think people view both of them as very pretentious cities. So I don't think people view this World Series.
Yeah, I definitely don't like New York. I don't have a problem with LA.
This is East Coast versus West Coast. This is like great because I think people from the outside look at each one of these cities as like you got Hollywood and then you got New York, and it's like these stigmas attached to both cities. They're popular, and because people do like, I love New York. Like New York is my city. I'll argue this down. Like I love Vegas and a place like that, but like I love New York City. People love LA. People from LA, the suburbs, the outskirts of LA. LA is Hollywood. People love California. I think even people from outside of the state really dig it, but they also view it as Hollywood. And then I think people like me who aren't from New York, but I really love New York, I look at it that way. It's popular, and because it's that level of popularity, people are going to tune in. And then they have the names, they have the faces, they have the fans, like the celebrity fans. They it's just like it's like a spectacle. It's like the Lakers versus the Knicks. It's the
See, for me, I don't care about none of that.
Knicks, but that's the thing. The Knicks haven't really been like playoff deep running team for years. Like just consistently, they haven't been NBA Finals in a couple of decades. The Lakers had a couple of runs before Kobe's career ended, and then they had a couple of decent runs with LeBron. But for the most part, it's just LA and New York. So that is what is kind of encapsulating the audience. But like I said, next year it could be Milwaukee versus Kansas City.
And see, and I would probably like that though, because like I was gonna say, like with the NFL, like you have identities, right? Like you got the black hole, you got the 12th man in Seattle, like you got the dog pound, all this kind of like baseball doesn't have those type of identities, or they're not branded that way. So like I think that
But with football branding isn't necessarily the city. Football is the sport.
Right.
It's like pizza. We all love pizza. Like you can love pizza in any form all over the country. Someone, what's your favorite food? It's pizza. It doesn't have to be Domino's. We love football. So if the game is on, if it's Daniel Jones versus Spencer Rattler in London at 9 o'clock next Sunday, we're still gonna watch. I know that's not the game, but like we'll still watch. That's why they were sending the Giants.
Some reason we sent London Giants and Panthers though.
We sent the Giants like for years, even when before Eli retired, and they were having those mediocre years. It was like we'll send the New York helmet to London because people recognize that, and they'll play Jacksonville because people in Europe love Florida. Like that was it. But it's football. You can do that.
Right.
When they did the exhibition in Korea, they sent the Dodgers because Korea, granted, it's the Far East, but if you think about, the United States is like a lot of Asians, when they come to the United States, they end up on the West Coast between Seattle, San Francisco, and LA. Mm-hmm. So having the LA based team go to Korea is like they immediately resonate with them. So it's like it's just the fact that you just in baseball you sell them the city and the big markets. In football, you sell them the sport of football. You give them whomever. Mark Sanchez versus Carson Wentz next week, and we're going to watch that game. Mark Sanchez comes out of retirement. Carson Wentz starting for the Chiefs. We're going to still watch that game and see how it turns out.
Yeah, shout out to the Green Monster. Yeah, but that's where I stand on baseball. It's just I don't know what could get me back to baseball. Because obviously, as I haven't been watching as much as I
You gotta
haven't been.
go. You you
Well, no, I
gotta
love
go.
going to baseball games, but I'm just talking about actually actively watching it day to day, or
You
because
gotta watch it.
like I just told
You
you, I was
gotta
just
get
watching.
into it.
Well, I just told you I was just watching. You know, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns against Texas State.
That's because football has you. Football has you locked. Football has you locked because it's so many teams, it's so many variables, it's so many personalities, it's so much, it's way more entertaining. Every drive in an NFL game, there is like an exciting play. There can be multiple innings in a baseball game where it's just pop ups and ground balls that you're watching on TV. But if I'm in the building, I'm drinking a beer, I got a hot dog, I got some popcorn, I got some cotton candy, I got the ambiance, I got the
Right.
fans. You have all these other things. Whereas football, I can watch the Hail Mary from my phone and think, like, granted, it's way more exciting to be in the building if that would have happened, but I don't feel like I've lost anything by just watching on my phone. Baseball, I can't watch a bunch of ground balls like
Oh,
all the time. Like, I couldn't watch a game where both pitchers had a no hitter going into the seventh.
and just to let you know, the Nuggets pull out a 144 to 139 overtime win over the Nets.
Fuck defense, right?
Yeah, fuck defense.
Cam Thomas put up what, 36, 37?
I told you the Nuggets are in trouble, man. Let's see. Real quick. So Jokic had 29, 18, and 16. Jamal Murray had 24. Aaron Gordon had 24. Russell Westbrook had 22 off the bench. Cam Thomas had 26.
Oh, that's low.
Cam Johnson had 20. Dennis Schroeder had 28. So there you go.
You see Schroeder run up on that fan for calling Ben Simmons. He said, Ben Simmons, you suck anyway, when he went to sign an autograph. So some kids after the Orlando game were in like the hallway, and then Ben Simmons walked by and didn't do something, didn't acknowledge the kid. He's like, you trash anyway. So Ben said, why you say that when I was over there? But he was like walking past.
Yeah.
So you hear Schroeder come by like, yo, who's talking shit to Ben?
And of course,
she was like him.
And of course, Ben Simmons was out tonight, with a sore back and everything, broke back Ben.
I think he just waiting for that check, the guaranteed money to run out. He's going to go back to the, Australia.
Go back to the Outback.
Go back to the Great Barrier Reef.
All right. Well, on that note, folks, we will be back on Friday. Or, potentially back on Friday. We'll see what happens. But at the very least, I'll be here on Friday with picks and more picks. We'll be back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing in the comments. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. And we love you. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Peace.